Welcome back to another episode of Away and Abroad, and happy Pride, by the way. I feel like I have not celebrated enough this month, and by the time this is released, I think on a Tuesday, it'll be over. But I did go to the Minneapolis Pride Parade today, and that was super fun. I'll have to just be more ahead of it next year. But I wanted to say that this episode is my first guest with my friend Jen. I'm so excited that she wanted to be on the show, and it was just such a great conversation. So if you're just listening, the audio will be a little bit different. We did the interview over Zoom, and I do want this show to be like kind of a remote show with like people from different places of the country and the world. But that does come with a few technical difficulties. But I also read online, they're like, you just need to like do it and start with where you're at and then, improve the quality as you go. So I hope, yeah, no apologies, but that's just where I'm at right now. Again, if you're someone who also has a creative project that you're like hyper fixating on all of the details, like just start with where you're at because you need to just like push the work out. So that's kind of what I'm telling myself. And but yeah, I hope you enjoy this conversation, and I'll see you next time. Okay, so today on Away and Abroad, I'm finally joined with my first guest, Jen Birkhofer. Thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely.
So we met, just to give a brief backstory, we met at a Spanish meetup here in Minneapolis. So I'm used to like speaking to you in like very broken Spanish.
Yep.
So this is a nice change. So first of all, I guess I'll just start with the first question of what inspired you to start traveling?
I think that there were a couple of things that probably inspired me to want to travel the world. One of them being when I was little, I was just a bookworm, so I'd read about these different places and just wanted to see them for myself. I
Mhm.
love nature, and there's just so many beautiful places out there on Earth that are almost like a different planet. Say, if you go to like Iceland or the desert in the Sahara, it's just incredibly different than what we know in Minnesota. And then also, I was fortunate enough to take some 3-week road trips with my family and my grandmas. We piled into a minivan when I was little in the summers, and my dad kind of was the inspiration for that. And we just got to go to different national parks around the United States. So I think that those two factors really created this love of traveling to different places for me.
I love that. It's like so cool to start the love as like a kid and through books too.
Absolutely.
So I loved your fun fact of how many ways can you say thank you in a different language?
Yeah, so I can actually say thank you in 16 different languages because I think it's one of the most important things to learn when you travel somewhere else. I do try to learn a few other common phrases when I travel to different countries, but you can gesture and kind of communicate through like, making numbers or pointing for a lot of things. But thank you, I think, is such an important sentiment to be able to convey.
That's so true. Yeah, I love that. And how many countries have you been to?
I've been to approximately 25.
So when you travel, like plan your next future trips, like is there kind of a container that you like to focus on? Like I think we talked briefly about you like more of a nature experience, whereas I enjoy the city. So how do you plan moving forward?
Absolutely. I think for me, as much as I love nature, is some of both because you just hear about some of these cities and want to see what it's like living in a different culture or just getting a glimpse of it rather with the amount of time I have to travel. So yeah, lots of nature things, nature parks, natural places draw me. So I'm drawn to waterfalls or different gorges. I find it really gorgeous. Like Slovenia has some really amazing places. But I think even cities are very interesting and can be different. So say like Dubai or London, these places you've heard about and just want to see for yourself.
Hmm. Yeah. And what do you say when people, I guess this is kind of like, yeah, into the advice area, but like what would since this is sort of like speaking to people who may never have like planned their first trip and they hear about you going to all these places and they're like, that's so incredible. Like, how do you even start, to do
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah. So for me, it took me a little while to gain kind of the experience and confidence with traveling before feeling like I was comfortable traveling solo. And I think that's a really normal thing. But for those who want to just jump into solo traveling, it's absolutely possible. And it's going to maybe seem a little more overwhelming, or you might have a fear of the unknown before your first trip. And again, completely normal, but through experiencing it, you learn how much you're capable of. And people are living in all of these places all over the world. So I think sometimes the media portrays some places as a little bit more dangerous or scary than they actually are. Yes, it's very important to pay attention to what parts of cities are less safe to be in and plan your trip accordingly to stay in safer areas to make sure that you're creating the best opportunity for a safe and fun trip that you can. But really, we don't necessarily fear the unknown in our daily life. And really, it's exciting and different, but there's not too much to fear when traveling.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And I always think of like people will meet you on the other side too, like people are generally pretty helpful and friendly
Absolutely.
and nice. So, yeah, that's been my experience too, is like there will be answers, like even if you can't figure it all out, like before you get on the flight, like there'll be help along the way.
Absolutely. And it really depends on what kinds of things you like to do when traveling to help you develop your itinerary. But with my experience, I traveled as a group first. I did a couple of
Okay.
tours first. And then from there, I was able to learn about planning an itinerary, kind of some top things to see. And what particularly interests me might be different than other people. Some people really love the food, so they might want to be researching restaurants, where I tend to be looking at the more the natural places. So it really depends on your interest, but there's lots of good tools and options out there. There's tons of blogs for any country you're interested in visiting. And then I find that TripAdvisor has some good ideas about things to do too, and it's organized by category, which is really helpful.
Yes, yes. Yeah, for a while I was like, I'm just gonna do biking tours. But then I started to notice what was like the top ranked wherever I was going. And I was like, why don't I just do that? Because that'll kind of dictate what's been like most popular or like, yeah, even if it's like touristy, like who cares? Like you are a tourist, so you might as well do
Absolutely.
those things that make the trip really great.
And it can be super fun to do some of those touristy things and balance with them with some things that are a little bit more off the beaten track if you prefer to
Hmm.
get away from the crowds at times.
Yeah, exactly. Are there any places that you've like returned to, or like what is your intention for travel now? Like do you just want to like get through this list you have, or yeah, how do you balance that?
Totally. I think I see some people who are all about getting passport stamps from different places, and that's
Yeah.
not so much me. Yes, I am limited in the amount of time I have to travel because of the expenses of it and because of having a full-time job. So that kind of puts a damper on some of the exploration that I would love to do. But I definitely try to make the most of every experience when I do go someplace. So I have a bit of an ambitious travel itinerary when I do go. But some of the things that I think are really important to me when deciding whether I will return to a place, since there are so many places to visit, is just the feel of the country and the experience. So I absolutely loved Italy. The food is incredible, the scenery is beautiful, the people are really kind. So I really loved Italy. I have been back to New Zealand as well. I would return to Iceland because it's such a beautiful country too. Where else? I think I might be going back to Japan. The people are so polite and it's so organized there, and again, just a beautiful country. So yeah, there's so many places to go. So typically I am someone who wants to go somewhere new, but there's definitely places out there that are really special and I would go back to.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like I'm still at the stage of like exploring every place or like well, a lot of places once and then
I'm still waiting for like that favorite spot. I have a friend who goes to Italy like multiple times. I'm like, that's just so cool. um, how many like I guess when considering to go to a place and figuring out the language, because this reminds me of Japan. I'm going there this October, so I
So
guess
exciting.
yeah, I'm excited. I think it'll be the most different place I've been to so far. Yeah, what would you recommend for people who like can't just learn and be fluent in Japanese in like 3 months? So what are like some common like words or phrases other than like please and thank you? Like what else would you say would be like top of list?
Absolutely. That's a really good question because that sounds like me. I'm not extremely proficient with languages. And fortunately for us, with English being our native language, lots of people around the world, at least the younger generations, are learning English. So that has
Mhm.
helped me in my travels. And like you had mentioned earlier, we both are practicing our Spanish to improve at that, which is helpful in numerous countries, but it's not going to help you in Japan.
Yep.
Um, so a couple of things that I find really helpful is just Google Translate. You can translate menus just by holding the phone over the
Yep.
menu, looking at the image. Very helpful. But other phrases that I think are important to learn might be good morning, good afternoon, hello, where is the bathroom? Maybe a few numbers could be helpful too to indicate how many of something you might want. Um, and then something else I try to think about looking at, just to be culturally sensitive and aware, is if there are any gestures that are considered rude that I should be avoiding. That's something I try to look up too.
Yeah, that's great advice because you just never know.
And of course, thank you.
Right. Can you say thank you in Japanese?
Obrigado gozaimasu.
Oh my gosh, that's such
Or
a long
sorry.
word.
I was mixing up Portuguese and Japanese. Arigato
Okay.
gozaimasu.
Okay.
Portuguese is obrigado. So they sound kind of similar, which I
They
think is really interesting.
do. That is. Yeah. How did you decide to like learn Spanish?
Yeah. In my high school in southern Minnesota, small town, it was the only language offered. So that got me started. And then I took a semester in college, but I will be honest, learning a language I found kind of intimidating because I didn't want to mess up and make mistakes. So I took a break from it for quite a while before getting back into it just a few years ago. I kind of overcame that fear and that anxiety of making those mistakes because it really is just part of the learning process. And it's really important to have a growth mindset to be able to know about the effort it takes to really become proficient at anything. You are always going to start out as a beginner. There's always going to be errors in that process of learning, and that's okay. And people are generally really kind and helpful about all of it. So it's not so much to be afraid of. And yeah, you can get better
Yeah.
at any language you want to learn.
hmm Yeah, that's really great advice. And I find people really appreciate the effort more than you being correct. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. You can still even convey kind of your message or ideas,
mhm,
even with the errors at times.
yeah. And I've learned it's really important to like laugh at yourself, which is really hard for me to do as a
Right?
beginner. But yeah, you just have to have fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, recently I was like mixing up waterfalls and stairs.
Okay.
Like as yeah, cascadas versus escaladas.
Escalators. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yep.
yeah,
Different tones for sure.
yeah, yeah, it happens. And most of the time it's like pretty innocent. So
Oh, yeah. Oh, when I messed up when I
yeah.
was in college was married versus tired.
Oh no. Very different.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh my gosh, that's good. Was there a moment you experienced on a trip where you're just like, yes, this is why I travel?
Oh my gosh, I think I probably experienced that every trip in different ways. Just
Yeah.
the experiences are also different no matter where
Mhm.
you go, whether you're seeing Machu Picchu in Peru or Mayan ruins in Belize or the pyramids in Egypt or Petra in Jordan. Like it's just all these incredible places, the Colosseum in Rome. So the nature in New Zealand and Iceland or the people in Jordan were incredibly kind and welcoming
Mhm.
too. Then the nature in Italy and Slovenia. I mean, there's just I can't choose one. There's so many experiences that I wouldn't trade for the world that you don't get to have in daily life. And so when you just seek more, you can find more.
Yeah. Yeah. Great answer. What is like the most challenging part about travel for you?
Probably same for many people is just the budget and the
Yeah.
time to be able to travel. Fortunately, I work in education, so I get a winter break, a spring break, and a summer break, and which has been really incredible. But with some of those amounts of times that you only have a week, and
Mhm.
with planning my vacations or travel around best times of year to go places, like I went to Japan for a spring break, so I had a week in Japan, add on a
Nice.
weekend on either side. It's about 10 days. Same thing for Morocco, but to make that flight kind of worth it to get all the way over there, you really want to see as much as you can during the time that you have.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And how do you like, yeah, how do you budget like throughout the year and prepare? Because I think especially when we're seeing like Instagram accounts and TikTokers, it feels very effortless to just, oh, all of a sudden they're in Italy, it's
Oh
like,
my
how did that
gosh.
happen?
Yeah, some of that I wonder, like, how do they manage it?
Yeah.
Because yeah, I like I said, I only have a few times a year, but even that is a lot compared to a lot of people. But it is something that I prioritize in my life. So there are things that I'm giving up. I
Mhm.
am not a coffee drinker, so that maybe saves me a few dollars a day, depending on if you're going to a Caribou or a Starbucks every day versus not having that. I tend to have tea that I make at home. I don't go out to eat as much because I am thinking about kind of the cost of things, like how many nights in a hostel would that get me in a different country? And
Yeah.
just a little caveat there, I think sometimes hostels get a bad rap, but if
Mhm.
you stay at some that have good ratings, they're completely safe. You can meet other travelers, which can be really fun. So yeah, it saves you a ton of money when traveling too, staying at hostels. So that's something to consider when budgeting too.
Mhm.
And then I maybe listen to music at home as opposed to spending money at concerts around here. So again, it's really up to your preferences. What kind of life do you want to have? It's completely valid and appropriate to go to concerts if that's your jam, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I tend to prefer to save that money because that's money toward a flight and a have experiences in a different country. So just
Mhm.
being cognizant about some of those daily things that might add up or weekly things that add up over time. I pack my own lunch when I go to work. I'm not
Mhm.
eating out regularly like that.
Yeah.
And then even when I do travel, I'm not as big as a foodie as most people are, I would
Mm.
say. So I can get by with like a pastry and an apple and some trail mix, and that helps. And sometimes staying at campsites, if you have a rental car, that can help save money too. So yeah, just thinking about how all these little things add up over time, you're able to save up more to experience more things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. It's like traveling is sort of a great comparison to just life in general. It's like we all, yeah, put money towards what we value and um like people splurge in different ways, like at home and on trips. So yeah, I tend to stay in Airbnbs. I haven't done hostels really, but that's kind of like next. I feel like that would be fun to experience.
Yeah.
And
I'm
then
definitely a long-term planner. Sorry to chime in there, but so
no, go
I'm
ahead.
always thinking about like, well, I could stay at this hotel, but if I stay at this hostel, that will get me a few more nights on my next trip or something like that.
Hmm.
And not to say that one is right or one is wrong. Everyone has different budgets that they're working with and different dreams and goals and plans, and that's okay. So as long as you can find what works for you, it's absolutely great.
Yeah, exactly. I love that like internal calculator you have.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just like always weighing like, okay, this meal would get me, yeah, a meal in Spain. So I'd rather have it there
right.
instead of here. Yeah, it's like a balance because I do feel like people should be a tourist in their own city when they can as well. It's like traveling can
Absolutely.
be really accessible. It's like it's all a frame of mind, right?
Totally.
So yeah, that's awesome. Oh yeah, I was gonna ask, do you prefer to travel like solo or with people or a mix of both?
I would say a mix of both. I think that solo travel can teach you a lot about yourself and help you develop your own sense of your true capabilities and competencies and can be a good challenge to push you beyond your comfort zone at times, especially if you're an introvert by nature.
Yep.
And I think that it might even be more challenging for extroverts because if they're so used to or wanting to have people around them all the time, they're probably going to want to travel with someone. But
Mhm.
I'm totally okay traveling solo. You don't have to worry about anyone else. You can do whatever you want, when you want. You're the one making all the choices. So I've had a great time traveling solo, but I've also had some amazing trips with friends, which you have shared memories together. They can just create more fun and entertaining. You know, my friend was singing songs in the Jordanian desert on our Jeep tour. Just memories you wouldn't have had if they hadn't been there. So yeah,
Mhm.
traveling with friends can make it more fun in some situations, absolutely.
Mhm.
But I will also say, when you do travel solo and you stay at hostels, you might meet other folks at the hostel and go on an impromptu scootering trip around Singapore. Again, creating memories you never would have dreamed or could have planned for. So
Mhm.
both
Yeah.
both are good in their own ways, I would say.
Yeah. I love all of your examples. It's like I want to hear like about all those stories now. Like, I'm like, I'm guessing that's a real place that you're a real experience you've had. How much of planning the itinerary do you do in advance? Because I think that's another thing that people can kind of feel like traveling should be spontaneous and you just kind of land somewhere and you explore. And for me, it can be kind of stressful because I feel like, am I going to miss out on something if I don't like research like well enough in advance?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And again, just kind of like you expressed, everyone has their own travel style. Some people might find travel planning stressful, so they just want to go and experience and relax at the beach. And yeah, that's awesome. My travel style tends to be a bit more of a planner because, like you said, I don't want to miss out on anything. So if I can do a little bit of research first and figure out what are like the top things that I think I want to see versus that might be different than the top things to do in a place, so yeah, like I said, since I might not get have the opportunity to get back to places, I do a little research. Probably want to have an idea of something that I could do each day while still leaving some time for flexibility and knowing that some of the things could be completely flexible. Like if I don't book a tour on a day, then I can totally change it if I want to and when I'm in that city or in that region.
Mhm. Yeah. So just like leaving the space for either one to
But I
happen.
do think it's good to be aware if you are going to multiple cities, kind of an idea of how long it's going to take from here to there, or what the prices of a train ticket or a bus ticket could be, to give you a good sense and a good picture of what you're going to be spending.
Yeah. So it's like if you had to nail down some details, transportation and time would be probably top ones to research.
And if you're traveling to a place when it's a high tourist season, it might be good to book your hotels or hostels in advance just to have that peace of mind that you know you have some place to stay.
Yeah, that's so true. Last year, I went to Seattle and I realized once I got there that I had booked my trip on like the busiest week of the year. I'm like, okay, well, I'm
Surprise!
in good company then.
Definitely.
So, yeah, yeah. And it's like so good to research weather too. So you're not like ending up somewhere in the middle of like monsoon season or whatever.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to be cognizant of just your attitude toward the weather. For example, I took a trip around the world one summer, and my first
Okay.
stop was
I
my
love
first
that.
my first stop was Iceland, and Iceland is a country that's known for rainy weather. So I went into it thinking like I'm not gonna let the weather stop me from doing any hiking. They have a saying over in Europe, there's no bad weather, just bad attire. So really adapting that kind of mindset, not getting down about it being rainy and drizzly, and just like not letting that stop you from experiencing such amazing places, I think was really important in making my trip even better.
Mhm. So, how old were you when you planned your trip around the world, and how many stops did you do that? Like, how did you even do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Although it's kind of a funny story. I was 28 and I turned 29 on the trip, and two places I really wanted to go were Iceland and New Zealand, which right are completely
Yeah.
opposite sides of the world. So I ended up working with a travel company based out of Australia to help me organize my flight in between. So I had 5 days in Iceland, followed by a few days in Dubai, Singapore, and Hong Kong before 2 weeks in New Zealand, and then coming home. So it was
Okay.
an incredible adventure and really helped me break out of my shell, gave me more confidence, renewed my faith in humanity because people were so kind. And yeah,
Wow.
really a life-changing experience for me.
That's awesome. That's like such a fun fact too, to be able to like be like, yeah, I traveled around the world.
It was actually my first solo trip.
No way.
35 days. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. 35?
Hmm.
Wow. Was that in the summer then when you had like summers off from okay.
Exactly, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah,
Oh
and
my
the
gosh.
completely different weather, say in Iceland versus heat in Dubai versus actually winter in New Zealand. So I ended up going to a thrift store in New Zealand to get a winter coat and some boots while I was there.
Wow. So it was
And I
like
do like
polar opposite.
completely opposite.
Hmm.
And I do like to pack as light as possible. No check bag, just a big backpack. So
Hmm.
I think that that's helpful for streamlining things at airports.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. It's like, yeah, another example of like the answer will be there along the way. It's like, oh, I can just
Absolutely.
find, yeah,
You can get sunscreen, toothpaste, toothbrush, bug
yeah,
repellent, whatever it is. You can get that
right.
in big countries. So if you forget to
Yeah,
pack something, it's really not a big deal.
yeah, yeah, for sure. What do you think people are like most afraid of with travel these days? I mean, I know you like spoke to like the media and just like how countries are portrayed, but yeah, I guess is there a place that you went to that like surprised you in like the best way? Like versus like expectation versus reality, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So expectations can be something to really be aware of. You make a good point about that. I guess one place that surprised me was Jordan, with it being a Middle Eastern country and a predominantly Muslim country. I guess I was concerned at being like an American, what it would be like for me there, but apparently historically they've actually had really good relations with America and people were so incredibly friendly. I did try to be culturally sensitive and wear a scarf over my head at a lot of places. And I learned how to say hello and then, native language and thank you. And I think that goes a long way, just being respectful of the culture, not showing a ton of skin, wearing light colored long sleeve clothing. So that is
Mhm.
was really incredible. Another place I went to, well, a couple of places. I've been to Colombia and I've been to Brazil, which I think that sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, that's a dangerous place to go. But if you're not staying out late partying and you're staying in the safe parts of the city, not visiting the favelas in Rio, I think that a lot of places, like I said earlier, like people live their daily lives there. So there's maybe not as much to fear as might be kind of portrayed or we might get these ideas about because of the news that we do hear. But even the news you hear in the United States, I think some of it sensationalizes the negative. And day to day in our daily lives, like we're generally very fortunate and safe for the most part. And I think that that's true in a lot of other countries as well.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, and I love the reviews. I whenever I look on Airbnb, I search for like solo traveler or something so that, to see if someone felt especially safe being alone in that area. So,
Absolutely, that's really smart to do.
yeah.
I've even looked at like crime stats at different international cities. Sometimes that data is available online. And again, try to
Okay.
stay away from the areas that more crime happens statistically.
Yeah. Yeah, good
Oh,
call.
and I would also say, like, be smart about what you're looking like when you're traveling. Like, don't have your phone out as much as possible. I know sometimes you need it for directions, but have that put away. Don't be wearing flashy jewelry. Don't be
Mhm.
wearing like clothing that's gonna make you stand out as much as possible, and that's helpful too.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to like whenever I do have to have my phone out for directions, I try to like take a look at it. And then if I'm not finding what I need, just like move down a block or just like can kind of keep moving. So you're not
Yep,
like a sitting duck and easy target.
right. Being aware of your surroundings too is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any like apps or anything that you use to like plan or just make lists for planning your trips?
Absolutely. So I love Google Maps. It's really easy to find different places and they have the reviews right on the map. It's easy to find green spaces, parks. You can search via waterfalls or um, different landforms you'd like to see. One time I searched via like hot springs just to see what was around and in the area. Um, yeah, and from there you can usually link to websites to get more information. So Google Maps, I think, is really great. I think I already mentioned TripAdvisors can be helpful for finding different places to go in different cities. I've used Evernote for making lists before. I like to plan my itineraries using kind of an Excel spreadsheet. I find that super easy to use. So yeah, there's tons of tools out there. There's All Trails has some good trail maps. Um,
Good to know.
there was a different one, Maps.me. I think they changed their app a little bit, but they used to have a free version, and I think you can still get a certain number of maps for free. And that had the
Okay.
option of kind of tracking you, even if you didn't have internet access, which was good for hiking on trails remotely,
Oh yeah.
making sure you're still
Good
on the
call.
trail at times. So yeah,
Right.
those are
Very
tools that I've
important. That's a great feature that they have. Wow. Well, anything else that you would like to add? This has been so informative. And yeah, let me know if there's anything else you'd like to add that we didn't touch on.
Absolutely. No, I think that, yeah, you might have kind of some anxiety or apprehension about going on your first trip or even a bigger trip than you've gone on before. But I'd say go anyway. You're going to learn a lot. You'll have
Yes.
a great time. You'll meet new people. There's all people all over the world you haven't met yet who could be, your next best friend. You never know. So have a great time.
Follow.
And, feel free to reach out if you want some tips about travel. No problem. You can find me at Jen of Some Trade on Instagram. And thanks so much for having me on the show.
Yes. Thank you so much for doing this, Jen. Safe travels.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation together. I just had so much fun doing it, and it was really fun to like share in the collaborative aspect of the show, which is what I want it to all be about. Before I wrap up, I had an idea that I wanted to just like crowdsource, I guess. After doing this conversation, I realized that like I'm really inspired to create a sort of container to focus in on with travel, because there's just so many avenues you can go down, which is like the overwhelming part, but also really exciting. So I thought a cool like series, it would take like a year to do. But a cool series would be like to interview someone in every state. Because I personally would love to have conversations with someone everywhere in the United States. And then, especially with kind of like the political culture climate we're going through right now, it would just be really cool to get like a vibe check in like all these different places to see like how we're all doing, especially relating to travel, because it feels like sometimes, the future of traveling feels uncertain sometimes, especially with like different restrictions people may have. So let me know what you think about that. And if I were to start it, I guess the first 4 states would be let me see if I can remember. Alabama for sure, which I've been to. Arkansas, I think, would be next. I know there's 4. The top 4 are 4A's. So Alabama, Arkansas, Arizona, and oh my gosh, Alaska. Okay, so if you know anyone from these states who would be interested in talking about like, if someone were to travel to these states, where should they go? Where's like an underrated place in these areas? I don't know. I think this would just be really interesting. So maybe that can be like a mini series alongside of like just like the people that I know that I want to talk to. So this is getting very long-winded, but I will wrap it up and just thank you again for listening. I'm so excited to be doing this, and yeah, thank you so much for listening. And thanks again, Jen, for being on the show.